Hello and welcome to another episode of the Opus Well Style podcast. My name's Ivan Watanabe here with my partner Evan Wall. Evan, how are you?
Doing great. How's it going today?
I'm doing great, thanks. It was about 15 minutes ago, absolute downpour outside. So thunder, lightning. So hopefully we don't catch any of that in the background. Hopefully my power stays okay. My generator doesn't have to get kicked on. Hopefully we'll be okay.
You look strong. You look great. You look great.
I appreciate it. I appreciate it. So on today, we're very excited to have Elaine Floyd. Elaine, how are you?
I'm good. Thank you.
Thanks so much for joining us today. So I'm going to have Evan kind of make the introduction here and introduce Elaine to the podcast. And we're really, really excited to have you on today.
Thanks.
So Elaine is the director of retirement life planning at Horse's Mouth. She literally wrote the book on Social Security and Medicare for professionals. She's been quoted in Wall Street Journal, New York Times, U.S. News, World Reports, Kiplinger, so on and so forth. She is a certain foremost expert on Social Security, which is our main topic of today. So thank you for joining us. We certainly have lots of conversations as we speak to clients all the time about every aspect of their finances. Social Security is certainly a big part of that when it comes to retirement income planning. One of the interesting things that I find, and I think Yvonne would attest as well, is almost everyone that I speak to assumes that Social Security will not exist by the time they get to retirement. And, we always have a little bit of a laugh about it, but I have a different perspective of what I share that I think it's just drastically unpopular for any politician to promote anything like that. And so everyone is well aware, most people are well aware that Social Security is, I'll call it, in need of adjustment. And so there will likely be some changes over time. And why don't we start there? What do you see as the current state of Social Security? Do you think it will go away in some period of time? And if not, what kind of changes do you think we can expect?
Okay, well, first of all, I was a financial advisor in the 1980s, and I was advising baby boomer clients at that time. Nobody thought Social Security would be around when they retired.
Even
And
then,
so
that's interesting.
now we all are, approaching 62 or over 62, and it's like, whoa, wait a
There
minute.
it is. Look at
Here,
that.
after all, right? But the point is that it was probably a good thing that we thought Social Security wouldn't be there, because it incentivized us to save in our 401ks, our IRAs. It essentially incentivized us to save for retirement. So if younger generations want to think that Social Security won't be there for them, I would say that's not a terrible thing.
That's a great
it's
point.
always good to kind of take it upon ourselves to create our own retirement income plan. Okay, that said, there are a lot of people who are nearing Social Security age, and at this point, then you want to incorporate those benefits into your retirement income plan if they're going to be there. So this whole uncertainty about the future of Social Security is, of course, on people's minds. And once a year, the Social Security trustees put out a report that projects finances over the next 75 years. And once a year, when this report comes out, it's always a good opportunity for the media to, sort of summarize what it says, and in a couple of sentences, shall we say. It's a very long report, but what the people hear about it is, in a nutshell, the Social Security Trust Fund will exhaust in the year 2033 or 2034 if you combine it with the Disability Trust Fund. And at that time, benefits will be cut to about 78% of current levels. So those are the numbers that kind of hit the headlines. That's what people think about, and that's what people are worried about. I just got a question this morning. Are those benefit cuts going to be across the board, or will people who are already receiving, be able to stay at their level? Or, okay, first of all, let's calm down. This is sort of a theoretical, it's an actuarial calculation, shall we say, that this is a shortcut way for the trustees to tell Congress, if you don't act, if you don't do something to reform the system, then this is what will happen. But to give a little backdrop or context to that, we all need to understand, first of all, it's a pay-as-you-go system that Social Security taxes will continue to be collected and will provide about 78% of promised benefits. What will exhaust, right now, there's about $2.8 trillion in the Social Security Trust Fund. This is just like a holding account, basically. This trust fund was never designed really to get this big, but baby boomers, have been front loading it because we've been at the peak of our earning careers, and now we're going to start draining it. So in 2033 or 2034, that 2.8 trillion will have been spent down, and now the only money coming in will be from the property, from the, why do I say property, from the payroll taxes that are being raised. Okay. So when it comes to Social Security reform, this is something that Congress will need to act on. Okay. And as I said, the Social Security trustees report is their vehicle for notifying Congress that you guys need to do something here, or benefits will be cut. Congress, in its typical fashion, waits until the last minute. In 1983, the system was within months of not being able to pay benefits, and Congress acted very quickly and didn't skip a beat. Those benefits continued to go out. So we're pretty sure that Congress will act and do something to reform the system. Now,
those acts, is it is it just safe to say that taxes are going up, and that's largely what's going to cover most of it?
Okay, going back to okay, what might be done here?
Yeah,
it's a math problem, really. That's all it is. Social Security is just a math problem, because they can project pretty accurately what salary levels are going to be, what the tax levels are going to be, and it's just a matter of adjusting either the taxes or the benefits. And there are different ways of adjusting these. Some of the proposals that have been thrown out are to raise the full retirement age from current 67 to maybe 69 or 70, and this would effectively be a cut in benefits. Another idea,
that's what just happened in France, is that correct?
Yeah,
something
I think
like
so.
that, yeah.
Right, or they're getting a lot of pushback on that too. But
riots,
and will probably happen here. Another thing is to raise the tax, either the tax rate or the income levels on which taxes are being
the income threshold.
The threshold, currently 160,000.
Right.
So,
I mean, it was a pretty substantial jump from last year. Last year was what, 142,
right,
up to 160 in a pretty short span of time, right? So, those types of things are sort of a sneaky way to, something that's not overtly obvious to most, what that Social Security wage-based increase was, right? I feel like I had that conversation probably 4 times a week, and nobody knows that it's gone up. And frankly, a lot of people don't even know what it is.
Right. So that, excuse me, that wage base initially was designed to collect taxes on 90% of earnings, collectively 90%. And because there has been this inequality in the higher paid people are being paid more, and the lower paid people are being paid less. It works out right now that taxes are being collected on only about 83% of earnings across the board. So that maximum wage base could go up considerably higher. If it were to go up to 90%, it would be, closer to 200,000 or even more.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah.
What do you see at this point? Obviously there's going to be changes to the Social Security system, unknowable what they may be, whether it's reducing benefits or increasing taxes, probably some combination of both, pushing out when you can start receiving it. At this point, with the current Social Security rules, what do you see as the most common mistakes? Is it claiming too early, claiming too late, not understanding the spousal benefits? Where do you see that most?
Well, I would number one is claiming too early. So many people are anchored to that age of 62, which is the age of early eligibility, and it's the earliest age that you can start collecting. People don't do the math for themselves. They look at their statement. Now the statements are presented so that in sort of a stair-step graph, if you collect at 62, you get this amount, 63, 64, 65. And so, it's clear from the statement that you will get more if you apply later. But what isn't clear from the statement is how that translates to lifetime benefits
Right.
Mhm.
over your lifetime. And so most people aren't thinking that way, and they claim too early.
Do you think people who have a shorter lifespan in their family should be collecting or claiming early versus the people who have longevity in their family? Maybe they should lean towards collecting later, or no?
Well, that's a good question, and that is the way that a lot of people do think about it. First of all, when you've got a married couple, you're looking at two lives, not just one.
Mhm.
So that's important to remember. And number two, just because, from what I've read, a good portion of longevity is based on lifestyle, and genes make up, a smaller percentage of the impact.
Mhm.
And so just because you have a short life expectancy in your family doesn't mean you're not going to live a long time. And
Mhm.
so the other part about Social Security that is so, so important for people to understand is that longevity insurance, just in case you live a long time. Let's plan for that.
Mhm.
Because if you
Yeah.
don't, you're not going to be here anyway, right?
Yeah. Now, Elaine, one of the things you mentioned was a statement. I can't tell you how oftentimes people they guess on how much they think they're going to get. I mean, people in their 50s have never taken a look at their Social Security statement. They get it in the mail, they kind of trash it. They don't even might get lost in the mail. So, we really recommend that folks go on to mysocialsecurity.gov, take a look at the statement, see if there are inaccuracies in the statement. Where do you generally, when do you start recommending that to folks? And what do you do if you do run into sort of an issue there?
Okay, good question. First of all, I recommend everybody over 18 open a Social Security account. And the reason there for the younger people is that, sorry to bring this up, but there are hackers who have gone in and actually opened Social Security accounts on stolen Social Security numbers. And then and they usually have the birth date associated with it. And when the person would have turned full retirement age, they'll go in and apply for benefits under that number. So this has happened. So we do recommend that everybody open a Social Security account as soon as they turn 18. And then this just kind of gets you oriented toward thinking about Social Security and your earnings, the impact of your earnings upon your eventual benefit. So you want to be checking those earnings every year, making sure they're accurate. And if you see a mistake, this actually happened to me years ago. I was freelancing. I was filing a Schedule C tax return, and somehow the communication didn't get from the IRS to the SSA, and it showed zero earnings for 1 year. And so it was an easy matter to get it corrected. If you have the information, if you have the tax return of the W-2, it's easy enough to get it corrected. There is a brochure on the Social Security website, how to correct your earnings record, and it explains right there how to do it. So that's why we do recommend, it's really, really important for people to open that account, check their statement at least once a year, make sure the earnings are accurate, and also watch the benefit amount. It's really important for people to understand that connection. The more they earn, the higher their Social Security benefit is going to be.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned setting up a online access with SSA.gov at 18. Can we not do it for our kids? We actually just had a gentleman on our podcast talking about cybersecurity and how everyone's Social Securities are on the dark web, and including our children's, I'm sure. So right. What can we do to make sure that our kids' Social Securities aren't being defrauded in that way?
I don't know, because you can't open a Social Security.
So you do have to wait till 18.
You have to wait till 18. Yeah,
mm-hmm.
Yeah. So.
You mentioned the spousal benefit just briefly earlier, two lifetimes. Can you explain to our audience the rules around spousal benefits and when one spouse might get the other?
Yeah, really important here. So I guess I'd like to talk about spousal benefits in two regards. One is when both spouses are both alive, right? So it used to be that most wives did not work. In fact, in 1939, when the spousal benefit was enacted, it was called a wife's benefit.
Really? Wow.
You know, we've come a long way since then, but that was you know, it was a way to give a non-working spouse access to the working spouses, half of the working spouse's Social Security benefit, and that exists today. It's called a spousal benefit. Now, of course, the baby boom generation has changed all that. Most baby boomer women have worked at some point and have their own Social Security benefit. And so now the trick is understanding which benefit you're going to be entitled to. If you've earned enough and your own benefit is more than half of your spouse's benefit, then you know you'll get your own and you won't get a spousal benefit. If it's less, then you will. And there are certain, you know, strategies that are maybe too complicated to go into here, but as far as when spouses should coordinate, when they should apply in order to maximize their respective benefits. Now we get to the other side, where when one spouse dies, and this is going to happen at some point, it is statistically usually the higher earning spouse who's older who will die first. You know, that's just kind of statistically the way it is. Husbands and wives, the husband is older, earns more, dies first. So at that point, even though you may have, the other spouse may have her own, you know, high earnings record and high benefit, she will step into the higher benefit when the husband dies, say. And let me be clear, these benefits are gender neutral. So, you know, we're just using husband and wife for clarity here. But when he dies, she will then compare her benefit to the benefit he was getting when he died, and she will step into that benefit if it's higher. And so this then comes back to strategies that couples should employ now in anticipation of that date. And so we want the strategy that's going to maximize that higher benefit, so that when the other spouse, when that spouse dies, or either spouse, you just want to maximize that higher benefit, because that's the one that will continue through the end of the life of the second spouse to die.
Got it. How does Social Security interact with Medicare? Is there a meaningful interaction that people should be aware about?
Well, when you apply for Social Security, you will be automatically enrolled in Medicare Part A. Medicare Part A is free if you qualify for Social Security, and so usually this is all fine. The complication comes in if you're still working, you're covered by an employer plan that involves an HSA, a health savings account. And for some reason, it's one of those rules that really doesn't make very much sense, but we're stuck with it. And that is, once you enroll in any part of Medicare, then you have to stop those HSA contributions. And it's causing problems for a lot of people because, you know, especially people who work after age 70. After you've turned 70, you're going to automatically turn on your Social Security. There's no reason for delaying it past age 70. And if you're working and you have to go onto Medicare, that's just a rule. You can't waive Part A if you're on Social Security. It's, again, just a rule. And so you can no longer make HSA contributions at that point. Yeah, it is strange, but it's just one of those things we have to deal with. But I would say too, a lot of people, they're in love with their employer health plans. They're in love with their HSAs, especially as long as they're healthy. HSAs are fantastic savings accounts as long as you're healthy and you don't need to use the money for the deductible, say. That was the original purpose of them, of course. So so people are reluctant to give them up. But I would just encourage people to look at Medicare, because Medicare is a fantastic insurance program, health insurance program. It is heavily subsidized by the government. And if people were to compare their employer plan with their HSA to Medicare, they would generally find, I mean, the exception is if somebody just doesn't use healthcare at all, you know. then maybe the HSA would be the better deal. But as you get older, stuff happens, and so the Medicare, it's probably a good thing that people right around age 70, if not before, go on to Medicare and make that their primary health care insurance.
Yeah. Elaine, can you share sort of if it does at all, how one's income or assets in retirement would sort of change the way that you'd make your Social Security decisions?
Well, people do tend to think that let's take the early retiree to start. Somebody retires, let's say they retire at age 62, and they think, okay, I'm going to apply for Social Security because I may have all these assets in my IRA and my retirement plans, but that's my money and I want to save that. I want to use Social Security's money for my living expenses. Well, we created a calculator for this, and it basically shows if you have a set spending need and you apply at age 62 versus 70. So at age 62, your spending need is being met by a combination of the Social Security and your own assets, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you apply at 70, it's coming all out of your own money, we call it, and nothing is being funded by Social Security. So when we show the calculator income stream, it looks pretty scary, all these zeros, nothing from Social Security from 62 to 70. But what happens is the benefit starting at age 70 is so much higher than it would have been applying at 62, that once you've gone a few years up to about age 78, then it flips, and you are now your spending need is being met less by your own resources and more by Social Security. Is that making sense?
Yeah.
Yep. So spend your assets down first, allowing Social Security to continue to defer. You can almost think of it as kind of like a guaranteed growth on that asset that the government is giving to you. And then you start, and it's interesting that you bring up the point of the crossover point is only 8 years. You only have to live 8 more years from age 70 to have that be better off. And I think, more often than not, that's probably going to be the case.
Yeah,
absolutely. How does we have this conversation often, but I'd love to hear your take on it, sort of how the taxation would work on Social Security, depending on where you've saved your money over the years, right? If you're pulling money from your retirement accounts, for example, I know it changes the way that your Social Security is taxed. I mean, can you provide any insight on that?
And if you're working part-time, I think that'll also have an impact, right?
Yeah.
Right. So the thing about taxation of Social Security benefits is that the thresholds were never adjusted for inflation.
Mm-hmm.
These thresholds went into effect in the early 90s, and so the threshold for a married couple is only $44,000 a year. And so once your income is over that, your other income, not the Social Security, but if you have any other income,
taxable income, whether it's distributions from 401ks, IRAs, or part-time, W-2 work.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So you're automatically thrown into that 85%. And so today we almost always tell people, just plan on having 85% of your Social Security taxed. Now,
as ordinary income.
Yes,
Mm-hmm.
it goes, it's just added to income and then taxed at your regular tax rate. And so, it's important for people. I've heard people say, I'm going to have 85% of my Social Security taxed, and no, it's subject to tax and then taxed at your tax rate. The other thing that goes along with this, though, which is a bigger issue, is the income related monthly adjustment amount for Medicare, IRMA for short. So if your income is over $97,000 for singles, $194,000 for married couples, your Part B premium for Medicare will be subject to an additional surcharge. And so all of the same tax planning strategies that you use just generally, to help clients reduce their income tax, it kind of goes double when they're on Medicare, and because you're actually saving that IRMA as well. And so so for the Social Security, like I say, just probably 85% of those benefits are going to be taxable anyway, so there's not a lot you can do about it, but you can definitely do something about the IRMA, and that's something to really watch for.
If you can you say those numbers again? If you can keep your taxable income below 90 for a single, and what was it?
94,000 for singles, 97,000 for singles, 194,000 for married couples. And this is modified adjusted gross income, which is AGI plus tax exempt interest. And the thing to know about those thresholds is that they are cliff thresholds. So if your income goes $1 over, you are thrown into that higher bracket, and your Part B premium will go up by, I don't have the numbers right in front of me, but roughly $60 a month. And it can go up from there. So that if you're in the top tier, you're going to be paying $500 or $600 a month for your Part B premium. May not sound that expensive compared to other health insurance today, but when you compare it to, you know, the normal Part B premium, which is $164 today, you know, just being able to maneuver your taxes such that you can save that additional premium, because you're not getting anything extra for your money there. It just makes sense to do those.
And that's per person, right? Not per couple or per
Correct,
household?
per person. Yeah. Yes, absolutely. Yep.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, how did it come to be that you became an expert in Social Security and wrote the book, and, you know, where did it all start?
Oh, I'm glad you asked. So I was a financial advisor in the 1980s. I left the business in 87 to become a freelance financial writer, and just did a lot of, you know, my focus was on retirement planning. I wrote books. I did, you know, just a lot of writing, a lot of study. And in the early 90s, I just started delving into Social Security for this book that I was writing. And that's when I discovered all of this, all of the changes. Even though the amendments happened in 1983, the information hadn't really filtered through society yet, you know? And so I started doing the math and started realizing, oh my gosh, 8% a year you get more for delaying your benefit.
Yeah.
And to me, it just kind of blew my mind. People don't know this, you know, people don't know that if they just delay their benefit, they're going to get, and keep in mind, the 1983 amendments where they set that 8%, interest rates were in double digits. You know, I don't know if maybe you don't remember.
No, I've heard, I've learned.
We've read.
Yeah. You've read. Yeah. So, you know, money market funds were paying, you know, 14, 15% back then. So this was the kind of context in which that 8% annual credits was set. And they're a great deal. And so then I just started thinking, okay, and I was started approaching Social Security age myself. And I wanted to really delve into this to find out how much my own benefit would be. And again, this whole idea of how much do you get over your lifetime, you know, and how, you know, that difference in starting amount, how does that translate over the many years? And then you add in the cost of living adjustments. So, you know, when I started with Horse's Mouth in 2008, that was the year I turned 62, because I was really interested in this for myself, as well as for our, you know, members, of course. But I created this calculator. In the beginning, it was this very crude Excel spreadsheet that just took the starting amount. It, you know, from the age 62, or if you were applying later, it added the delayed credits, added the COLAs. It ran it out over whatever life expectancy you wanted, and then compared. And it like blew my mind, really, to see the difference. And if you were to see our calculator output, and the clients are blown away by it, it's like $500,000 difference with a married couple over their lifetime, if they both claim at 62 versus the higher earner claiming at 70. So it's really
some nice family vacations right there.
Totally.
Yeah, absolutely.
Totally.
Well, that's amazing. Well, Elaine, you know, as we kind of wrap up, are there any things in particular you want to make sure that the listening audience kind of takes away? Anything in particular that you want to make sure you mention that you haven't mentioned yet, or something you want to kind of highlight?
You know, I would just like to highlight a couple of things that I talked about. And one is this idea of maximizing the higher benefit, and that when, again, the higher earning husband, shall we say, because that's usually what it is thinking about taking his benefit, please think about, you know, the surviving spouse, and do what's best for her. to put it in, simple terms. And because studies have shown that a lot of people they are only thinking about themselves. Oh, I had a short life expectancy. My dad died young, whatever it might be. I'm going to take my benefit now. But you've got to understand that when you go, your benefit will, it will transfer over to your surviving spouse. And the longer you wait to claim your benefit up to age 70, the higher that survivor benefit will be. So that's just crucially important. And then the second thing I just want to emphasize is this idea of longevity planning, that people will probably live longer than they think they will. Mm-hmm. And it's just good financial planning to plan on a very long life. And everybody is concerned about running out of money. Social Security is one of the few lifetime inflation-adjusted sources of income there is, and it just makes sense to maximize that to the extent possible.
Absolutely. We're 100% on board with that. Elaine, where can the listening audience find out a little bit more about you and your work? And if they have questions about Social Security, where can they find you?
They could email Social Security at horsesmouth.com. We have a public website, horsesmouth.com, and you could go there and, explore and see what all we have to offer. I am on LinkedIn, Elaine Floyd. And so, yeah, that would be
great. And for the listening audience, the first 5 people to sort of comment or reach out to us, we'd be happy to send a copy of Elaine's most recent book. So thank you so much, Elaine, for joining us today. I know the listening audience really appreciates it, and so do we. And to you, the listening audience, thanks for tuning in. Make sure to click subscribe below to be notified when our next podcast episode comes out. Thank you all.